got some new faces. We've got some faces that we don't get to see all the time. And Dion, I know you have to leave. But guys, please, when we get done tonight, and I'm going to make this point again later on in class, be sure to stick around and let us all get an opportunity to be able to speak with you, to talk with you, and I will try not to wander too much because of the film. But guys, stick around. Let us have an opportunity to get to know each other, to get to spend a little bit of time with each other so that we are able to continue to grow. Chances are you guys ended up being here at some point in time, whether you grew up in this congregation, whether you were invited to come here, you saw an advertisement for GFC, somebody dragged you kicking and screaming, one way or the other you're here. I want you to take advantage of the time that we've got together, to use this time to be able to build relationships, to get to grow and be with one another. As Donnie talked about, this semester, we're going to be doing a new series of lessons on some of the tougher teachings of Christ. And really what we're going to want to do is take a deep dive into the teachings that are seemingly hard to accept or even to apply to our lives. But truly, what may be a better, yes! Sorry. But what truly may be a better name for the class or a better idea for the class is more along the lines of us getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. When you look through the Gospels, and it's most common really in the book of John, but all of the Gospel writers, they write down a lot of the reactions that the Jews had to some of the teachings of Jesus. And there is a huge range of emotions that you'll see in there, because sometimes you'll see anger, you're going to see resentment, and you may even see confusion, because Jesus made them uncomfortable. I want you to think about some of this. Jesus was the founder of being countercultural. He was teaching about a code and a set of morals that did not align with the Jewish norms of the day. He was teaching about love in ways that many people of the time were not accustomed to. I got an email. I apologize. Wow. But he was talking about a lot of he was teaching about loves in ways that they were not accustomed to. He was talking about the fact that we are supposed to turn our cheek, that we're supposed to love our enemies. But does this mean we're supposed to let people dominate us and push us around? He would also talk about the fact that we're not supposed to worry. But does that mean we're sinning if we do? There were a lot of these teachings that a lot of the times the apostles and the Jews would have a reaction, kind of like we got up here in John 6:60, of this is a tough teaching. And so what we're wanting to really talk to you about is the fact that, we want you to be able to, someone comes up and asks you a question regarding some of the teachings of Jesus, or even why you believe, that you're able to answer them and that you're able to be comfortable explaining the uncomfortable. All right. Now then, how many of you have noticed, hey, that was like a whole page of notes for me, by the way, because Donnie took some of my thunder when he was explaining what we're getting ready to do. But how many of you have noticed the change that is in Gainesville? There's a change that happens like every January. It's cold. Well, no, not that. I'm sorry that some of you guys this ain't cold, by the way. My in-laws are up in Nashville where it was one wind chill well below zero. That was cold. Anyway, but there's a change, and it is amazing. We have been here. So this will be the 13th. This will be the 13th change of a new year that Christina and I have seen since we've been in Gainesville. And it may be very specific to Gainesville, because I don't know if it's the weather, I'm not sure if it's the university or what, but there is a very distinct change that you will see every January. Has anybody else noticed this? What is it?
The people.
The people.
Yeah.
What are they doing?
They're here.
Well, they're here, but then there's something very specific. And to me, it's very weird. Have you seen all the stupid runners? I don't get it. It is like somehow in their minds, they decided at midnight on December 31st that for some reason they're going to go from being a couch potato, that once it hits January 1st, they're all of a sudden training for the Olympics. And you've got all of these people that are out there and they are running to their heart's content. Okay. I don't know what's causing that.
It's because you got your mic hooked up here, Peter.
No, I'm wondering if it's this new thing. No, my mic's hooked up here. That's the other mic. Oh, really? Yeah. Okay, well, then I'm going to undo that. And so anyway, all the weird people in the running. I don't understand it. Specifically, I don't understand running when no one's chasing you. I'm sorry. I don't get it. I'm focusing that to Sterling. I can understand running up and down a basketball court. I can running up and down a field, because when I'm doing that, I'm either chasing someone or I'm trying to get away from someone. There's a reason, but the idea of looking outside and going, hey, I'm going to go for a run. This is great. There's nothing great about that. But truly, not at all what I want to talk about tonight. But you can see outside right now, and it happens every January. It happens every first week of January, and we have seen this for the last 13 years. That you've got all of these people that are just out there and they're running. But how long does it last? We are 11 days. We are 11 days now into the new year, and based on what was the website that I looked at? Happy habits, healthy habits, some form of habit, something or other. Anyway, the stats that they ran is that by the end of the first week, only 75% of people who have made the New Year's resolution haven't busted. That means 25%. 1 in 4 have already busted whatever resolution they made within the first week. Do you know how far that drops into the second week? You go from 25% to anywhere from 40 to 50, depending on the complexity of the resolution. Do you know how many people who have made resolutions regarding running that make it to 2 weeks? Less than 25%. But what is it regarding the resolutions that makes it so hard? Louder than that. Consistency. All right, guys, the reason, and I told you all that I really to tell you this. I truly hope that you guys have set some goals and that you have some expectations for 2023. And I really hope that you have a goal of challenging and pushing yourself. But if you haven't already done it, I do ask that you go through and look back at 2023 and write down the accomplishments that you had in 2023.
2022.
What year is this? Thank you. Roll back and look at the accomplishments, because if you're already writing down 2023, you're well ahead. Go back and look at 2022 and look at the accomplishments that you've had. And then also make a list of the things that did not go as expected. And if I can use the F word, write down your failures. Because for some reason, we can't say failure now. It either has to be an improvement opportunity, or it has to be something that did not go as we had hoped. Those are typical failures. Write those down. But as you're writing them down, figure out why. When you're writing down those goals and you're making out your list of expectations, guys, look at the successes. Look at the things that you accomplished in 2022. You're like, you know what? I did that. This is why I was able to do that. And look at the things that didn't go right in 2022. And start writing that down. So this is why this didn't go well. Because after that, from that, that is really, truly one of the only ways that we can change and that we can grow and go ahead and have the success and things that we're looking for as we continue on through 2023. Now, how many of you, if you could summarize it into one word, I don't need multi-word answers, so one word. Monosyllabic would be great, but a one-word answer. If you were going to summarize what you hope to accomplish in 2023, what would it be? Intentional. Nice, I like that one. What else we got?
Growth.
Growth, absolutely. What else do we have?
Daily purpose.
That's 2 words. Follow directions.
Purposeful. Purposeful.
Purposeful, good job. What else do we have? Knowledgeable. All right.
Risk.
You say risk? Nice, excellent. One more, somebody else give me something. If it's more than 1 word, then it's the wrong answer. It's like you were like counting, ticking down things with your fingers. All right. Yes? Running. Good job, Forrest. All right. Anything else? His didn't count because that one was stupid. Ripped. I like it. I like it. Guys, for me, and really what I want us to focus on and look at, the be able to answer my question, what I want to see, and I want to see out of 2023, my answer is really based off of John 8:31. John 8:31, which says, so Jesus said to the Jews who believed in him, if you abide in my word, and you are truly my disciples. If you abide in my word, you are truly my disciples. And I really like the word here, abide. And looking at truly being a disciple of Christ. And I kind of combine that with 2 Timothy 2:15, where it says, do your best to present yourself to God as one approved, a worker who has no need to be ashamed, rightly handling the word of truth. Rightly handling the word of truth. Do what?
Seems like more than 1 word.
I'm getting to 1 word, but I'm telling you the summary of my 1 word. I get to teach class. So, it also combines, I know I was leaving something out, because in Matthew 21 through 18, when Jesus was telling the Jews, I want you to abide in my word, and not the law that he had already been teaching as an idea that is foreign to what they had been believing at the time. Jesus is telling them that to truly grow and to be his disciple, that we must abide in his word. And Paul is telling the same thing. Paul's telling the same thing to the people here when he was writing the letter to Timothy. Do your best to present yourself to God as one, again, who is a worker who has no need to be ashamed. Who's got my Matthew 21? 18 through 19, go.
Early in the morning, as Jesus was on his way back to the city, he was hungry. Seeing a fig tree by the road, he went up to it, but found nothing on it except leaves. Then he said to it, may you never bear fruit again. Immediately the tree withered. So I want you to take all 3 of those together. I want you to think about Jesus going up to this tree and saying, hey, there was no fruit on it, and having it wither away. To think about the idea of abiding and also doing our best for God. Now, some of you may remember who Lou Holtz was. Lou Holtz was a longtime football player and commentator for ESPN. But he once said, in this world, you're either growing or you're dying. So get in motion and grow. He said, get in motion and grow. We've got a lot of other examples that we have here in scriptures that we can use to really support the idea that if we're going to abide in God's word, and we're going to do our best and be fruitful and not wither away like the fig tree just did, then we're going to have to grow. So really, my 1 word, in summary, what I want to see in 2023, I want to see growth.
Predicted it.
Do what?
I predicted it.
Good job. You did well. I was proud of you. I want us to see growth, but I don't want it to be just any normal growth, or specifically, I don't want it to be growth. I want it to be growth over the status quo. I want us to have a growth so that it is evident that God is working inside Gainesville, Florida. I want it to be a growth that the devil is scared to death and is on defense. Because if the devil is on defense, that means we've taken everything away from him and we're going after him. I'm looking for a type of growth so that we can expand on God's kingdom well beyond what normally happens, so that the world can look at it and say, guys, we need to go down to Gainesville. We need to see what's going in there. So what I'm going to share with you for the next few minutes, guys, is a way for us to be able to sustain and have this growth. And the very first thing that I want you to think about is that God has got to be and is the source of our growth. God is going to be the source of our growth in 2023. Who's got my John 15 passage?
Yes. I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes away, and every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes, that it may bear more fruit. Already you are clean because of the word that I have spoken to you. Abide in me, and I in you, as the branch cannot bear fruit by itself, unless it abides in the vine, neither can you unless you abide in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. Whoever abides in me, and I in him, it is that bears much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing.
Right. Have you ever seen a tree grow from the branch first? Have you ever seen a bush that decided, like, okay, I'm going to grow, here's the branch, and we're going to now grow this way? All of the growth starts from the root. And so that was the idea that Jesus was sharing here, in that for the best way for us to be fruitful is that you are going to have to trust that I am the vine. That you're going to have to trust the fact that we are abiding in him, and by abiding in him, we're going to have that growth. Paul was talking about growth with the church in Corinth when he said in 1 Corinthians 3:6, he says that I planted, Apollos watered, but it was God that gave the increase. It's God that gave the growth. And Jesus was telling us specifically that growth comes from God and abiding in him. But while we're abiding in him, we've got a growth. One of the things that we need to understand is, guys, relationships are absolutely essential for us to be able to grow. Who's got my Acts 2:42?
They devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship, to the breaking of bread and to prayer. Everyone was filled with awe at the many wonders and signs performed by the apostles. All the believers were together, and they had everything in common. They sold property and possessions to give to anyone who had need. Every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved.
Guys, this was a time frame in the early church where the church was experiencing explosive growth. It was experiencing the type of growth that I was talking about a few minutes ago, where I would like for the devil to be on defense. I would like for him to be reeling because of the growth that was being sustained. And if you look through that passage, there were some things talking about that the individual needed to do. I think specifically it was in there. It was talking about that they had, they were studying and that they were giving, but the biggest thing that they were doing is that they were having fellowship with one another. They were eating together and meeting in each other's homes. And in short, really, the early Christians knew that for them to continue to have that sustained growth is that they had to have the relationships that they needed to have relationships with each other. I started asking at the beginning for some of our visitors that we have here really to stick around after class tonight and telling you guys, stick around and let us get to know each other. Because growth does not happen in these four walls. And I need to make sure that really sinks in. That our growth and our relationship with each other is not going to happen if all we do is try to have it right here. And If we're going to really push and have the growth beyond the status quo, if we're going to abide in God's word and do our best for God, it can't be done sitting here with each other. You're going to have to develop, you're going to have the time frame of fellowship with each other outside of here. You're going to have that growth of getting together and working with each other away from here. You're going to have that time frame of crying on each shoulders, of working with each other, of having that, of being able to develop a project and do things with each other that don't happen when all we see each other is on Sunday and Wednesday. For us to be able to build the relationships that God was talking about, to build the relationships that we just read about in Acts chapter 2, it is something that you've got to work on and develop daily. I really want to give you a couple of examples on that. Most of y'all know Chris Suggs. And I did not know Chris before I moved here. And really, and outside of a handful of interactions, Chris and I did not see each other that often. And it was really one day with Chris being purposeful, calling me up and saying, "Hey, Darren, let's go to lunch." And we went and sat down with lunch, and we went to Yummy House. Don't recommend Yummy House. But we went to Yummy House, and he sat down and he said, "Dude, how are you doing?" "I'm good." "How are you doing really?" I know he's done that with you as well. Suggs has taken that time. He's been purposeful with that relationship. I have had an opportunity to be able to do it. And guys, I wasn't going to mention this, but truly, if something that I have mourned over the last 3 years is the lack of growth of relationships. We have not had the opportunities to go on mission trips, to do a lot of the housing projects, and to have some of the togetherness that we had once upon a time. Some of those things are coming back, and I'm looking forward to a lot of the opportunities. We just had a meeting with some of our leadership team, and being able to grow and do things and get with each other. I've been able to grow and get to know Sterling and Dre better simply because they've come to the house. I've had meals with them at the house, and we've been able to interact with each other outside of the normal time frame that we have here. It has been here, but some of the guys, we've gotten together and we played basketball. We've had more time with each other than just simply having this time frame to study with each other. And that is how we're going to have the relationships with each other, to be able to have the growth that we were talking about beyond the status quo. But I can really tell you, simply because Chris took that time to say, "How are you doing? Really?" That is a relationship now that, Chris, I consider Chris one of my closest friends. I've been through him through some of the happiest times in his life, and I've been through him with him in one of the saddest. But it was a relationship that grew simply because someone took the time to have that relationship with me that we're talking about. But also in developing those relationships, guys, with each other. Whoops. Hey, have we read this? I don't think I have that on there. I apologize. No, that was Acts 2. That was supposed to have Acts 2 there, not Philippians 4. I'm so sorry. No wonder I was confused. All right. While we're having our relationships with each other, something else that we've got to know is we need to be able to put others before us. If you want to have the key to growing that, and with the example like I just gave with Chris, mine and Chris's relationship grew because he put his needs above mine. Being able to put others before us. Somebody said, "Well, who's got my Philippians 2?"
So if there is any encouragement in Christ, any comfort from love, any participation in the Spirit, any affection and sympathy, complete my joy by being of the same mind, having the same love, being in full accord and of one mind. Do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourselves. Let each of you look not only to his own interests, but also the interests of others. Have this mind among yourselves, which is yours in Christ Jesus.
Guys, we really want to see our relationships with God grow. We want to see our relationships inside the kingdom grow. If we want to see what it means to be a worker that's not ashamed, if we're going to look for ways to find relationships with others, and guys, we're going to put the needs for others first. But also, while we're doing that and we're working with each other, we need to learn to wait on God. We need to be sure that we wait on the Lord. There is a song that we sing that is absolutely one of my favorites. Was written back in the 50s, and that was the 1950s at least, not the 1850s, but it's, teach me, Lord, to wait down on my knees till in your own good time you answer my pleas. Teach me not to rely on what others do, but to wait in prayer for an answer from you. This is really based on a passage in Isaiah. Who's got my Isaiah? You have my Isaiah 40.
He gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. Even youths grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall.
29 to 31.
Oh.
Okay.
But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint.
Because I know that there are times when we are striving and we are working so hard for God that we really kind of get impatient because He is not responding to our prayers. He's not responding to our growth. He's not responding to the fact that we're abiding in Him and that we're working for Him and we're giving Him our best. And we're like, okay, God, grow. Grow. And for some reason, the growth is not happening. And it's not happening on our time. But as it talks about, something that we've got to make sure that we are doing is that we are waiting on God. Because, as it just read here out of Isaiah, it's those that wait upon the Lord will renew their strength. We will run and not grow weary. We will walk and not faint. Teach me, Lord, to wait. All right. I've got relationships going. I'm putting others first. And I know it gets frustrating when the growth isn't on our terms. And guys, we've got to remember that God is the vine. God is the vine, and He is the one that provides the growth for us. And then sometimes, guys, while we are to grow and to be able to continue to grow, we've got to be able to take some chances. We've got to be able to take some chances. In Matthew chapter 25, and who's got my Matthew coming up? I'll get to you here in just a second. But in Matthew chapter 25, we've got the parable of the talents. And Jesus is telling a story about a master who's getting ready to leave town. And he goes ahead and divvies up some of his belongings to his servants. And it's very important, something that you find in verse 15, it says, each according to his ability. Each according to his ability. But he's telling this story, and he's leaving his servants in charge. If you will, let's go ahead and read that. Matthew 25, 20 through 28.
The man who had received 5 bags of gold brought the other 5. Master, he said, you entrusted me with 5 bags of gold. See, I have gained 5 more. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. The man with 2 bags of gold also came. Master, he said, you entrust me with 2 bags of gold. See, I have gained 2 more. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. Then the man who had received 1 bag of gold came. Master, he said, I knew that you were a hard man, harvesting where you have not sown and gathered where you have not scattered seed. So I was afraid and went out and hid your gold in the ground. See, here is what belongs to you. His master replied, you wicked, lazy servant. So you knew I harvest where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered seed. Well then, you should have put my money in deposit with the bankers, so that when I return, I would have received it back with interest. So take the bag of gold from him and give it to the one who has 10 bags.
Again, going back to verse 15, something that we did not read. It says specifically in there that Jesus divided up the talents, each to his own ability. Each to his own ability. Now, the exact same Greek word that is translated ability in this verse is also the same word that is translated ability in 1 Corinthians 10:13. 1 Corinthians 10:13 that says that I cannot be tempted, or that God will not tempt us beyond our ability. He is not going to tempt us beyond our ability. And now I have to believe that if he is not going to tempt us beyond something that we can bear, that he is not going to put a burden on us that we can't handle. But I think it is very clear through some of the teachings. I know we're going to be doing this in this class and also in our parables class on Sunday, is that if God has given us a talent, we can't bury it. For us to be able to grow and sustain growth and give the growth that God is talking about, and to allow him to be able to grow within us, that we're going to have to use the talents that God has given us. When I was in college, I hated leading singing. To the point that I flat out would not lead singing. It wasn't that I didn't have the ability. And very distinctly, I came into services one night, and one of their elders said, "You're leading singing tonight." I said, I didn't ask. And guys, that was 30 years ago, and I've been leading singing ever since. Because I was, and I'm thankful for that, because I am not a talented vocalist whatsoever. I have the ability to lead songs. And I was able to take that talent and use that. There were times in teaching class that I would have my knees knocking and be scared to death because I did not want to stand up and be in front of a crowd, did not think that I had the ability to even present a cohesive thought. I hope these have been cohesive. But because I was pushed into it, because I did not bury the talents in the sand, I was able to develop those and use those for others so that God can provide the growth. Guys, please, if you've got a talent, if there's something that you have, use your abilities. Use the things that you have been given and take a chance. Take a chance with that relationship. Take a chance in reaching out to someone who they may intimidate you, they may scare you to death, but they may need that friend. Take a chance. Reach out, try to reach out for that growth, try to make the relationship with each other. And then finally, guys, one of the last things when we're talking about with our growth is have faith. Guys, we have got to have faith when we're talking about a lasting and sustained growth. Who's got my Hebrews 11 passage? Before we read this, Hebrews 11, quite specifically, and for those of you who may know, this is the Hall of Faith, where you have several times throughout this passage that you'll have verses that say, by faith Adam, by faith Moses, by faith Abraham, by faith blah, 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 blah. There's like 7 different by faith statements. And right in the middle of all of those by faith statements, it says this.
And without faith, it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him.
That he, without faith, do it one more time. Big boy voice. Make us all believe it.
And without faith, it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him.
When you look at this passage, and specifically all the different passages that are surrounding it, each one of the by faith statements is followed with action. It talks about by faith Abraham. And there was a lot of by faith Abraham, because Abraham did a lot of things by faith. By faith Abraham left his country because he had faith in God and the growth that God had promised him. By faith Abraham offered the only son that he had ever assisted in giving birth to. and he offered up that son to die. By faith, Moses, by faith, each one of these individuals, and by faith, it was with action. All of their action was by faith because there was an intended result. What's that we got? Last. Okay, so I will not show the video. Guys, there was from the movie Facing the Giants, there's a story that a preacher walks through and tells an individual. And he talks about simply the fact that there were two farmers who were praying for rain. There are two farmers that are out there praying for rain, but it was only one of those farmers that went outside and got his fields ready for it. And my question that I really want to ask you guys is, are you guys ready for growth? Are y'all ready to be able to grow? We've got this retreat that is coming up this weekend. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to make it. If there is someone here who is not able to go, I ask you and I urge you to do your best to try to be able to go on the trip. For those of you who are going, use this time to be able to prepare yourself for the growth that we've been talking about that I want us to have in 2023. Use this time frame. You're going to have a number of classes. You're going to have the ability to get there, guys, to allow God to provide the growth, but you're going to have an opportunity there to create relationships. You're going to have an opportunity to put others' needs before you, to allow God to take control. Guys, you're going to have an opportunity to display the abilities and talents that you have, and I urge you to please take a chance to reach out to someone new. They're going to have Christians there from Missouri, from Alabama, from Florida, from Georgia. You're going to have them from all over that you're going to be able to reach out to and take a chance and get to know somebody a little bit better. Take a chance to build that relationship and have the opportunity to be able to grow. And so that when you come back here, your heart, your mind is already ready so that you can be ready for the growth that God is going to give us. Guys, I appreciate so much all of your time. Thank you for my bumbling with my papers and the sound issues. Appreciate it. If you will, let's go ahead and stand up.